My future daughter-in-law handed me the microphone at her engagement party and asked me to share the secret to wealth in front of 200 guests. Behind her, my son was typing into the family group chat, "Mom has endless money, just send the bills." I'm 61, chief accountant at a mid-sized firm. They wanted me to be their walking ATM. Instead, I became the notary of a debt they never saw coming. That night, the party lights suddenly blazed white. The music cut out. A process server walked through the crowd with legal documents, and their endless money ended right there at the head table. My name is Eleanor Whitfield, though everyone calls me Nora. At 61, I've built a quiet, stable life in South Austin after my husband passed 4 years ago. I work as chief accountant at Pioneer Ledger Services, a position I earned through decades of precision and dedication. My days follow predictable patterns, spreadsheets, quarterly reports, compliance reviews, exactly how I like them. Or at least, that's how things were before my son Mark decided to rewrite my financial story without my permission. The engagement party was supposed to be simple. Just 40 people in my backyard on a warm October evening. String lights wrapped around the oak trees. Catered barbecue from Terry Black's. Mark had been dating Lila Keller for 2 years, and while she seemed pleasant enough, I'd noticed small things, the way her eyes catalogued my house during her first visit. How she'd casually mentioned my beautiful vintage Mercedes to her friends, though it was just a 10-year-old E-Class I'd bought used. "Mum, you're going to love Lila's family," Mark had promised while helping me arrange rental chairs that morning. "They're good people, down to earth." The Kellers arrived in a gleaming Escalade that looked fresh from the dealership. Vivian, Lila's mother, swept into my backyard wearing designer sunglasses despite the setting sun, immediately commenting on the charming cottage feel of my 3-bedroom ranch. Graham, the father, had the practiced handshake of a man who'd sold things his whole life too firm, held too long. Their younger daughter Tessa barely looked up from her phone, though she managed to ask if my pool was heated within 5 minutes of arrival. During dinner, I announced my gift to the couple I'd covered the security deposit and first 6 months' rent on a nice 2-bedroom apartment in Muller, the trendy development near downtown. It came to about $12,000, which I considered generous for a couple just starting out. "Oh, that's sweet," Vivian said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Though I assumed they'd be looking at houses. Renting is just throwing money away. Don't you think?" "It's a perfect start while they save for a down payment," I replied, keeping my tone pleasant. Mark shifted uncomfortably beside Lila, who was whispering something to her mother. I caught fragments, "told you," and "partner at the firm," before Mark cleared his throat. "Mum's being modest," he announced to the table. "She's not just an accountant. She's the chief financial strategist for her company, handles millions in portfolios." I stared at him. "Mark, I'm chief accountant. I handle regulatory compliance and internal audits." "Same thing." He waved dismissively. "Point is, Mum's got her finger on the pulse of serious money." Later, while bringing out dessert, I overheard Lila talking to her aunt near the pool house. "Mark's so lucky," she said, not bothering to lower her voice. "His mum has this bottomless fund. She just doesn't like to flaunt it. Mark says she could buy this whole neighborhood if she wanted." My hands stilled on the pecan pie I was slicing. Bottomless fund. I had a healthy 401k, yes, and the life insurance from Robert's death had paid off the mortgage. But I was hardly wealthy. Comfortable. Maybe. Careful. Definitely. When I returned to the patio, Mark pulled me aside. "Mum, quick favor when people ask about your work tonight. Maybe don't go into the whole bookkeeping thing. Just say you're in private investing. It's simpler." "Simpler, Mark. I'm not a private investor. I'm an accountant." I know. But Lila's family, they're kind of traditional about success. Her dad's been in commercial real estate for 30 years. They respect financial achievement. And being chief accountant at a respected firm isn't an achievement. He squeezed my shoulder. "Of course it is. Just trust me on this. For tonight." I watched him return to Lila's side, saw how she immediately linked her arm through his, how her mother leaned in to whisper something that made them all look my way. Graham raised his beer in my direction with a knowing smile, like we shared some secret understanding about wealth. The rest of the evening, I noticed things I'd missed before. How Vivian kept mentioning their temporary cash flow situation due to some real estate investments being tied up. How Tessa complained loudly about her student loans from SMU, making sure I heard the number $90,000. How Lila steered every conversation back to their future plans, each more expensive than the last. A destination wedding in Napa, a house in Westlake Hills, European honeymoon. As the guests began leaving, Vivian cornered me by the kitchen door. "We should have lunch next week. Just us mothers. I have some wonderful ideas for the wedding. With your resources and our connections, we could throw something truly spectacular." "I think Mark and Lila should plan what they can afford," I said carefully. She laughed, a tinkling sound that didn't match her calculating eyes. "Oh, Nora, don't be modest. Mark told us all about your situation. It's wonderful that you can give these kids the life they deserve." After everyone left, I found Mark's phone on the counter. Screen up, notifications visible. A message in a group chat labeled Keller-Whitfield Alliance caught my eye. "Mum has endless money. She just doesn't like to show it. Don't worry about the wedding budget. I'll handle her." My son, my careful, thoughtful son, who I'd raised to value honesty and hard work, had turned me into a fiction, a convenient fiction with a bottomless wallet. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea, looking at the rental agreement I'd signed for Mark and Lila's apartment. Such a simple, generous gesture. But apparently, not nearly enough for the story they'd decided to tell. The first crack in the foundation had appeared. I just didn't know yet how deep it would go. The spreadsheet arrived in my email 3 weeks after the engagement party. "Family Financial Planning," read the subject line, sent from Vivian Keller's email at 11:43 p.m. on a Tuesday. I'd been preparing for bed, doing my usual check of work emails, when it popped up. I opened the attachment to find a meticulously organized Excel sheet with color-coded categories: household essentials, transportation, medical necessities, and business development. Under each category, line items stretched down the page. The Kellers' HOA fees for their house in Cedar Park, $850 monthly. Tessa's car payment for a BMW X3, $670. Graham's outstanding medical bills from a recent surgery, $12,000 total. And under business development, something called Lila's Boutique Startup Costs, $45,000. At the bottom, in bold red font, monthly family support needed $4,875. One-time immediate needs, $57,000. I stared at the screen, certain I was misunderstanding. This had to be some kind of mistake, maybe a document meant for their financial planner. But then I saw the note in cell Z1. Nora Mark said you preferred seeing everything itemized. We appreciate your support during this transitional period. V. My phone rang before I could process what I was reading. Mark. Hey, Mum. Did you get Vivian's email? Mark. What is this? Just some temporary help while they sort out their situation. Vivian's really organized. Isn't she? She wanted to be transparent about everything. Transparent about me paying their bills? I heard him sigh. That particular exhale he'd perfected as a teenager when he thought I was being unreasonable. Mum, it's not like that. Graham's real estate deals are just tied up right now. They'll pay you back. I never agreed to this. You don't have to do everything on the list. Just maybe the urgent stuff. The HOA is threatening liens, and Tessa might lose her car. It would really mean a lot to Lila. Mark. I already told them you'd help with at least the HOA. Mom, please. These are going to be my family too. After I hung up, I found 3 more emails from Mark in my inbox. All forwarded bills. A past due notice from a credit card company. A warning from a luxury gym about cancelled membership. An invoice from a country club with 3rd notice stamped across it. Each email had a note from Mark. Can you handle this? I'll explain later. Or, just put this on autopay from your account temporarily. Or, Lila's crying about this one. By morning, I had 12 forwarded bills in my inbox. I called Mark during my lunch break. He answered on the first ring, unusual for him during work hours. Mom, perfect timing. Can you add me as an authorized user on your Amex just for wedding expenses? Absolutely not. It would make everything so much easier. Vendors want deposits now. And, Mark, we need to talk. In person. Tonight. He showed up at 7:15 p.m. with Lila. She was carrying a binder labeled Wedding Dreams and a tablet, dressed in designer workout clothes that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Mrs. Whitfield, she started before they even sat down. I want to apologize if Mum's spreadsheet seemed presumptuous. She's just very type A. You know, likes everything organized. Organized is one word for it, I said, gesturing for them to sit at the dining table. I've been thinking about how to handle this situation. Oh, good. Lila brightened, opening her tablet. I have Venmo, Zelle, and PayPal ready. Whatever's easier for you. I'm not paying your family's bills. The silence stretched between us. Lila's perfectly manicured nails stopped tapping on the tablet screen. Mark's face flushed the way it did when he was embarrassed. Mom. However, I continued, I understand you're planning a wedding and starting your life together. If you need financial help, we can structure something formal, a loan agreement, with terms and repayment schedules. Lila's smile flickered. A loan? But Mark said. What did Mark say? I turned to my son, who suddenly found the ceiling fascinating. I might have mentioned that money wasn't really an issue for you. You told them I was wealthy. Not wealthy, just comfortable. Very comfortable. And that you liked to help family. Lila jumped in. My parents are family now, or will be soon, and they've done so much for us. Dad introduced Mark to 3 potential clients at the club. Mum's planning the entire wedding. Tessa's designing our wedding website for free. Tessa's charging $3,000 for the website, I said, pulling up the spreadsheet on my phone. It's line item 47. Mark wouldn't meet my eyes. That's just for hosting and maintenance. The next morning, I woke to find 17 more emails. Vivian had created a shared Google Drive folder called Keller-Whitfield Financial Partnership and added me as an editor. Inside were dozens of bills, past due notices, and payment plans, all with little notes. Nora can handle this one. Add to Nora's autopay list. Urgent need Nora's attention. One document caught my eye: wedding venue comparison. The cheapest option was $35,000. Someone, Lila, judging by the purple font, had commented, "Mark's mum already budgeted $100K for wedding, so we can go bigger." I screenshotted everything. At work that day, I couldn't concentrate. My colleague Jennifer found me staring at the same compliance report for 20 minutes. "You okay?" "Nora, my son's getting married," I said. "Congratulations, you must be thrilled." His fiancée's family sent me their bills, all of them. They want me to pay their mortgage, car payments, credit cards, everything. Jennifer's eyes widened. "What? They think I have endless money. What gave them that idea?" I thought about Mark at the engagement party, transforming my careful, modest life into something grander, something that would impress the Kellers. "My son did." That evening, another text from Mark. "Mom, Vivian's at the Lexus dealership. She says you approved a cosign for Lila's new car. They need verification." I had approved nothing, but apparently, in the Keller-Whitfield universe, my consent was assumed. My wallet already open, my boundaries non-existent. The mythology of Nora's endless money had taken on a life of its own. It was time to start documenting everything, because I could see where this was heading, and I was going to need proof when it all came crashing down. The credit alert arrived at 6:17 a.m. on a Saturday. Someone had applied for a Neiman Marcus card using my social security number, listing me as the primary account holder with Lila Keller as an authorized user. The application claimed I had an annual income of $450,000, nearly 4 times my actual salary. I was on the phone with the fraud department by 6:30 "Ma'am, the application was submitted in person at our North Austin location. The applicant had your driver's license number and social security information." Did they have my actual driver's license? No, but they had all the information from it. They listed you as approving the addition of an authorized user verbally. My hands shook as I took notes. "Please freeze that application immediately. This is fraud." After hanging up, I found 3 more alerts: Saks Fifth Avenue, Nordstrom, even a luxury furniture store called Design Within Reach. All applications submitted within the last 48 hours, all claiming verbal authorization from me to add Lila as an authorized user. I drove to Mark's apartment without calling ahead. He answered the door in pajamas, confused. "Mum, it's 7 in the morning. Someone's been applying for credit cards in my name." His face went pale. "What, that's identity theft." 7 applications. Mark. All with Lila as authorized user. From behind him, Lila's voice called out, "Is that your mom? Tell her thanks for approving the Neiman's card. They said it would arrive next week." Mark closed his eyes. "Lila, come here, please." She appeared in a silk robe, hair perfectly styled even at this hour. "Morning, Mrs. Whitfield. Did you get the confirmation emails?" "What confirmation emails?" "From the stores. The sales associate said they'd send confirmations to your email once the cards were approved." "Lila." I kept my voice steady. "Did you apply for credit cards using my information?" "Well, Mark said you wanted to help with the wedding shopping but didn't have time to go to the stores yourself." He gave me your information to add myself as a user. It's more convenient than you having to buy everything and get reimbursed. I turned to Mark. You gave her my social security number. I thought you'd be okay with it. You said you wanted to help. I never said that. I explicitly said I wouldn't add you to my accounts. But that was about your Amex. This is different. These are new cards. In my name, with my credit, that I didn't authorize. Lila's confident smile faltered. Mark said you were fine with it, that you just didn't like dealing with paperwork. I pulled out my phone and started recording. For the record, I did not authorize anyone to apply for credit in my name. Any applications made without my explicit written consent are fraudulent. I will be filing police reports and contacting all 3 credit bureaus. Mom. Mark grabbed my arm. You can't file police reports. That's Lila. We're getting married. Then Lila better hope those applications can be cancelled before they're processed. That afternoon, I sat in the law office of Marisol Vega, a friend from my book club who specialized in financial law. Spread across her desk were printouts of every email, screenshot, and credit application. Nora, this is systematic financial abuse. They're treating you like a bank. They think I have endless money. Doesn't matter what they think. What matters is protecting yourself. She pulled out a legal pad. Here's what we're going to do. First, freeze your credit immediately. Second, document everything, every request, every bill they forward, every unauthorized use of your name or information. Third, we're going to create a legal framework for any money you do choose to give them. I don't want to give them anything. I understand. But your son is involved. If you want to help him without becoming the Keller's personal ATM, we need structure. She explained her plan. Create something called the Family Launch Fund, a formal loan agreement for Mark and Lila's house down payment. Since I knew they'd eventually ask for that. Make it official, notarized, with clear terms and consequences. We'll include specific clauses, Marisol said, writing rapidly. No misrepresentation of the loan as a gift. No use of your name for any financial purposes without written consent. Any violation triggers immediate acceleration, meaning the full amount becomes due immediately. We'll also include the right to file liens against any property purchased with the funds. That seems harsh. Harsh is them committing fraud with your social security number. This is protection. That evening, I met with Owen Price, a financial advisor Marisol recommended. He was a soft-spoken man in his 50s who'd seen, in his words, every possible family money disaster. The key, he said, reviewing my finances, is to make everything ironclad. No verbal promises, no informal transfers, no we'll figure it out later arrangements. We spent 3 hours creating a comprehensive plan. The Family Launch Fund would be exactly $120,000 enough for a 20% down payment on a modest house in Austin's suburbs. The loan would have a 5-year term at 4% interest, with a clear repayment schedule. What if they don't agree to the terms I asked? Then they don't get the money. Simple as that. But nothing about this felt simple. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Mark as a child, how he'd saved his allowance for months to buy me a birthday present, a little ceramic bird he'd seen me admire at a craft fair. Where was that thoughtful boy who understood the value of money, who took pride in earning things himself? My phone lit up at 2:43 a.m. A text from Vivian. Nora, the country club needs the past due amount by Monday, or they'll revoke our membership. $8,500. I know it's late notice, but Mark assured us you'd handle it. Thanks so much, XOXO. I didn't respond. Instead, I added the screenshot to my growing folder of evidence. Sunday morning brought a call from Mark. Mum, did you get Vivian's text about the country club? I did. And nothing. I'm not paying it. But you have to. They have a wedding reception booked there. If they lose membership, we lose the venue. Then you better find another venue. Mum, why are you being like this? You have the money. Mark, do you know what my actual salary is? Silence. Do you? I pressed. I mean, your chief accountant. 135,000 a year, before taxes. That's comfortable, yes. But it's not endless money. It's not pay everyone's bills money. It's carefully budgeted, save for retirement, one nice vacation a year money. But Dad's life insurance paid off the mortgage and went into retirement savings, which I'll need, since I plan to retire in 6 years. More silence. Mark, you've created a fiction about my finances, and now the Kellers believe it. Lila believes it. But worse, you seem to believe it too. I just wanted them to respect you. Respect me. They're treating me like a cash machine. Is that respect? He hung up without answering. I spent the rest of Sunday with Marisol and Owen, finalizing documents. By evening, we had everything ready: loan agreements, cease and desist templates, documentation of all unauthorized credit applications, and a formal letter outlining the terms under which I would provide any financial assistance. The papers were drawn up, notarized, and ready. Tomorrow, I would present them to Mark and Lila. The Kellers would learn that endless money came with very real limits. But first, I had one more document to prepare: an invitation to a family dinner at the Cypress and Stone Club next Saturday. I'd call it a family financial summit. Let them think I was ready to open my wallet wide. They had no idea I was about to snap it shut. The Cypress and Stone Club sat on a hill overlooking Lake Travis, all limestone and glass, the kind of place where Austin's old money mingled with tech millionaires. Vivian had insisted on this venue for what she called our family financial summit, though I noticed she'd told the staff it was a celebration dinner for our generous matriarch. I arrived at 6:45 p.m., 15 minutes early, carrying a leather portfolio containing every document Marisol and Owen had prepared. The private dining room Vivian had reserved and expected me to pay for overlooked the sunset, walls of windows framing the burnt orange sky. Mrs. Whitfield. The event coordinator rushed over. Mrs. Keller said you'd be handling the evening's charges. Should I run your card now or wait until after? Please check with Mrs. Keller about payment. There seems to be a misunderstanding. Her smile wavered. Oh, of course. I'll clarify. I chose my seat carefully back to the wall, facing the door, the portfolio beside me. The room began filling at 7 p.m. sharp. Vivian swept in wearing what looked like St. John's latest collection, Graham behind her in a sport coat that screamed money but whispered taste. Tessa arrived glued to her phone, designer bag swinging. Mark and Lila entered last, her hand possessively on his arm. Nora! Vivian air-kissed my cheeks. Don't you look lovely? Is that Ann Taylor? Target, I replied, though it wasn't. She laughed like I'd made a delightful joke. You're so funny, pretending to shop at Target when we all know better. The first course arrived oysters I hadn't ordered. Vivian raised her champagne glass. Before we discuss the family finances, I want to thank Nora for her incredible generosity. Not many mothers-in-law would embrace their son's new family so completely. Speaking of which, Graham jumped in, pulling out his phone. I've found the perfect investment opportunity for you. Nora, my buddy runs a development company. Let's eat first, I suggested. Through the soup course, Vivian regaled the table with wedding plans that had somehow ballooned to a 200-guest affair at the Four Seasons. The coordinator said if we put down the deposit by Monday, that's $50,000, we can lock in the spring date. Mum's already set aside the wedding budget, Mark said quickly, not meeting my eyes. How thoughtful of me, I murmured. Tessa finally looked up from her phone. Aunt Nora. Can I call you that, Aunt Nora? I'm thinking of getting my MBA. Stanford. Probably. Since you're covering education expenses for the family now? I am. Mark said you considered it an investment in the family's future. During the main course, $40 stakes, Graham launched into a speech about his latest real estate venture. Just need a bridge loan. $300,000 for 6 months. The returns would quadruple your investment. Nora. The leather portfolio sat beside me, waiting. Oh. Lila pulled out a gift bag. We got you something, Mrs. Whitfield, to show our appreciation. Inside was a leather-bound ledger. Family benefactor, embossed in gold on the cover. I opened it to find pages already filled out a list of monthly expenses totaling nearly $15,000, all assigned to me. Vivian helped organize it. Lila beamed. Now you can track all the family expenses you're covering. We even included the mortgage on Mom and Dad's house since Mark said you wanted to help with that too. How efficient, I said, photographing each page. Vivian produced her own folder. I've taken the liberty of setting up some automatic payments. All you need to do is sign these authorization forms, and the bills will draft directly from your accounts. You know my account numbers. Mark provided them. For convenience. I looked at my son. He was studying his water glass like it held the secrets of the universe. Mark, I said quietly. You gave them my banking information. Just the routing numbers, for the wedding venue deposit. And the country club, Graham added. And Tessa's tuition payment. And my boutique's wholesale order. Lila chimed in. 30,000, but it'll triple in value once I sell the inventory. The waiter approached with dessert menus. Vivian waved him over. We'll have the whole dessert tray. We're celebrating. Our generous Nora is about to make all our dreams come true. Actually, I said, reaching for my portfolio. I have some documents to discuss first. Documents? Vivian's smile tightened. How formal. I believe in being thorough. I pulled out the family launch fund agreement. Mark, Lila, this is a loan agreement for your house down payment. $120,000, 5-year term, 4% interest. A loan. Lila's voice pitched higher. But you're giving us... I'm offering you a formal loan. With terms. Vivian snatched the papers. This is ridiculous. Family doesn't charge family interest. Then family doesn't repeatedly apply for credit cards in family's name without permission. The table went silent. There are also these cease and desist letters. I continued, pulling out more documents. For the unauthorized use of my information, the fraudulent credit applications, and the false representations of my financial status. Mum? Mark's face was red. You can't be serious. The credit fraud alone could result in criminal charges. I've consulted with both my attorney and a financial advisor. Graham stood. This is insulting. We've welcomed you into our family. You've welcomed my imaginary money, which doesn't exist. Mark told us. Vivian started. Mark lied. I turned to my son. Didn't you? The waiter returned. Should I bring the dessert? We're not staying for dessert, Graham declared. Nora, when you come to your senses and realize what you're throwing away, family, love, your son's happiness. My son's happiness doesn't require me bankrupting myself. Lila was crying now, mascara running in designer streams. Mark, do something. But Mark just sat there, caught between the fiction he'd created and the reality I'd just presented. Vivian gathered her things. Come on, everyone. We don't stay where we're not valued. The bill. The event coordinator appeared, looking panicked. It's $840. Who should I? Mrs. Keller made the reservation, I said calmly. But she said, what I said? Vivian snapped. Was that Mrs. Whitfield would be joining us? I never said she was paying. They left in a cloud of indignation. Tessa muttering about false advertising. Graham threatening to reconsider Mark's position at his firm, which I knew was an empty threat since Mark didn't work for him. Mark lingered. Mum, how could you? How could I? What refused to be robbed? They're going to cancel the wedding. If the wedding depends on my money, it shouldn't happen. He left without another word. I sat alone in the private dining room, watching the last light fade over Lake Travis. The waiter approached hesitantly. Ma'am, the bill. I handed him my credit card. $840 to end the fiction of endless money seemed like a bargain. As I signed the receipt, my phone buzzed. A group text from Vivian to the Keller-Whitfield Alliance. Nora has shown her true colours. Mark, you need to handle your mother. She's destroying this family with her greed. I screenshotted that too. Evidence for what was coming next. Because this dinner wasn't the end. It was the setup. The Kellers thought they could pressure me through Mark, guilt me into opening my wallet. They had no idea that I'd already prepared for the real confrontation. The one where their endless money fantasy would end in front of everyone who mattered. The wedding reception they'd planned at the country club, the one they'd already sent invitations for. Without my knowledge, was in 3 weeks. They'd invited 200 guests to celebrate their access to my fortune. Instead, those guests would witness something very different. The country club reception was scheduled for 8 p.m. on a Friday. I arrived at 7:45 p.m., wearing a simple black dress and carrying a manila envelope. The grand ballroom sparkled with fairy lights and crystal centerpieces decorations that cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Nora, a family friend, Patricia, embraced me. Vivian's been telling everyone about your generosity, funding the entire wedding and their new house. You're a saint. Has she? I kept my voice neutral. The room was already filling with guests. I recognized Mark's college friends, Lila's sorority sisters, Graham's business associates, all here for what Vivian had billed as a celebration of family unity and prosperity. The Kellers had created a receiving line near the entrance. Vivian wore a gown that rivaled most wedding dresses, greeting guests with pronouncements about joining 2 successful families. Behind her, a projection screen displayed photos of Mark and Lila, interspersed with images of the house they'd picked out, a $700,000 property in Westlake Hills. Mark found me near the bar. He looked exhausted. stress etched in lines around his eyes. "Mum, please, just play along tonight. We can sort everything out later." "There's nothing to sort out. Mark, I've been very clear. They've told everyone." "Yes, I'm aware what they've told everyone." At 8:15 p. Vivian took the microphone. The room quieted. "Good evening, everyone. We're so delighted you could join us for this special celebration. As you know, Mark and Lila's wedding is next month, and tonight is our opportunity to thank the woman making it all possible." Heads turned toward me. I remained seated. "Nora Whitfield isn't just gaining a daughter-in-law," Vivian continued. "She's embracing an entire family. Her unlimited generosity has made dreams come true, the wedding, the house, even supporting our family's various ventures." Someone started clapping. Others joined in. The applause felt like hammers against my skull. "In fact," Vivian's smile widened, "Nora has something special to announce tonight about the financial foundation she's creating for our joined families. Nora, would you join us?" This was it. The moment they'd orchestrated. Public pressure in front of 200 witnesses. They assumed I'd cave rather than face humiliation. I stood, picked up my envelope, and walked to the microphone. Vivian handed it to me with a triumphant smile, then stood beside me, her hand on my shoulder like we were best friends. "Good evening," I began, my voice steady. "I'm a numbers person, so I believe in precision, facts, documentation." Vivian's smile flickered, but held. "Let me share some precise facts." I opened the envelope. 6 weeks ago, at the engagement party, my son told his future in-laws that I had, quote, "endless money." This was a lie. The room went silent. Vivian's hand tightened on my shoulder. Since then, I've received bills totaling $93,000 from the Keller family. These include their mortgage, car payments, credit cards, country club dues, and various luxury purchases. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Graham started moving toward the stage, but I continued. "I've also been the victim of credit fraud. 7 credit cards were applied for using my social security number without my permission. The applicant claimed I had verbally authorized adding Lila Keller as a user. This is ridiculous." Vivian reached for the microphone. I stepped away. "I have documentation." I pulled out photocopies. Text messages from Mark stating, "Mom has endless money. Just send the bills." The Kellers' spreadsheet of monthly expenses they expected me to cover. Credit fraud reports. Even this. I held up the leather ledger they'd given me. A gift from the Kellers, pre-filled with $15,000 in monthly expenses assigned to me, including their mortgage. Lila stood up from the head table. "You're ruining everything." "I'm clarifying everything." I turned back to the audience. "My annual salary is $135,000. I'm a chief accountant, not an heiress, not a lottery winner, not a woman with endless money." "Mark!" Vivian shrieked. "Control your mother." Mark stood frozen by the bar, his face pale. I pulled out the final document. "This is a loan agreement I offered Mark and Lila. $120,000 for a house down payment, with terms, interest, and consequences for misrepresentation. They refused it because they wanted a gift, not a loan." "You're destroying your son's happiness," Graham shouted from the back. "No," I said clearly. "I'm ending a lie that my son started and you all perpetuated." Patricia, my friend from earlier, stood up. "Vivian, did you really send Nora your bills?" It's family helping family. Vivian sputtered. It's fraud. Someone else called out. And theft. The wedding coordinator appeared at the side of the stage, looking panicked. Mrs. Keller. The country club needs immediate payment for tonight's event. $12,000. That's Nora's responsibility. Vivian pointed at me. I signed nothing, reserved nothing, promised nothing. I handed the microphone to the coordinator. The reservation is in Mrs. Keller's name, but she said, what she said and what's true are very different things. Chaos erupted. Guests began gathering their things, murmuring in shocked tones. Several of Graham's business associates were already heading for the exits, their faces masks of second-hand embarrassment. Tessa was crying into her phone. It's all ruined. She ruined everything. One of Mark's college friends approached the stage. Mrs. Whitfield, Mark told us you were funding his startup too. Is that also a lie? Yes. The friend turned to Mark. Dude, what the hell? Vivian grabbed the microphone from the coordinator. Everyone, please. This is just a misunderstanding. Nora's obviously having some sort of breakdown. The only breakdown, I said loudly enough to be heard without the microphone, is the breakdown of your fictional narrative about my money. Lila ran to Mark, mascara streaming. Fix this. She's your mother. Make her fix this. I can't make her do anything. Mark finally spoke, his voice hollow. I never could. I just wanted you to think that your mother was rich. Lila's voice turned sharp. You lied to me. You lied to each other, I said. And then you all lied to everyone here. The country club manager appeared with security. Mrs. Keller, we need to discuss payment immediately, or I'll have to ask everyone to leave. This is extortion, Graham bellowed. This is consequences, I replied. As security began ushering people out, Vivian made one last desperate play. She grabbed my arm, nails digging in. You'll regret this. Mark will never forgive you. You'll die alone, without family, without debt I didn't create, without lies I didn't tell, without paying for your lifestyle. I pulled my arm free. I'll manage. The lights came up to full brightness, harsh and revealing. The fairy tale atmosphere evaporated, leaving only the stark reality of overextended credit and false promises. As I walked toward the exit, Mark intercepted me. Mum, wait. I stopped, but didn't turn around. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I just wanted them to respect you, to respect us. Respect can't be bought, Mark, and it certainly can't be built on lies. What am I supposed to do now? Finally, I turned. My son looked younger than his 32 years, like a child caught in a game that had spiraled beyond his control. You tell the truth. You apologize to everyone you've misled. You figure out if Lila loves you or your fictional wealthy mother. And you decide what kind of man you want to be. I left him standing there in the harsh light of the empty ballroom, the sound of Vivian arguing with the country club manager echoing behind me. But this wasn't over. Not yet. The real consequences were about to arrive, in the form of legal documents that would make tonight's humiliation seem like a gentle warning. The ballroom lights blazed at full intensity now, washing out the romantic ambiance and exposing every crack in the facade. I stood at the podium, phone in hand, as Owen Price's voice came through the speaker, clear, professional, and devastating. Mrs. Whitfield, I'm confirming receipt of the signed loan documents from 3:27 p.m. today, per your instructions. I'm now activating the acceleration clause due to multiple breaches. Can you specify the breaches for everyone here? I kept my eyes on the Kellers. Certainly. First, misrepresentation of the loan as a gift to third parties. Second, unauthorized use of your name and credit for financial gain. Third, fraudulent credit applications using your social security number. These violations trigger immediate full repayment of the $120,000 family launch fund disbursed 6 weeks ago. Gasps echoed through the remaining guests. Vivian's face went from red to white. What fund? Graham demanded. We never received any money from you. No, I agreed. But Mark and Lila did. The down payment for their house came from a formal loan I provided. A loan with very specific terms about misrepresentation. Mark stumbled forward. Mum, you can't. I can, and I am. I nodded to Owen on the phone. Please continue. The acceleration clause means the full amount is due within 72 hours. Failure to repay will result in a lien against the property at 4578 Westwood Drive, Austin, Texas. That's our house, Lila shrieked. Mark, that's our house. Your house that my money bought, I corrected. Through a legal loan that you've been telling everyone was a gift. Marisol Vega entered the ballroom, followed by a process server in a dark suit. The remaining guests pressed against the walls, unwilling to leave this spectacular unravelling. Good evening, Marisol announced. I'm Mrs. Whitfield's attorney. We're here to serve formal notice of default and acceleration. The process server moved with practiced efficiency. Mark Whitfield. Mark nodded numbly. Lila Keller. Soon to be Whitfield, Lila said defiantly. Not relevant to these documents. He handed them each a thick envelope. You've been served. Graham and Vivian Keller. We have nothing to do with this, Graham protested. You're named in the fraud complaint, Marisol explained. The credit applications were submitted from your home IP address, and Mrs. Vivian Keller's email was used as a reference claiming to be Mrs. Whitfield's financial advisor. That was a joke, Vivian sputtered. Credit fraud is never funny. The process server handed them their envelopes. Tessa Keller. I'm 19, Tessa wailed, and legally an adult who sent invoices for services never rendered, claiming Mrs. Whitfield's prior authorization. He gave her an envelope too. I pulled up my banking app on my phone, projecting it to the screen behind me where the happy couple photos had been. I'm now cancelling all automatic payments that were set up without my authorization. One by one. I deleted them while the room watched. Keller HOA fees cancelled. Tessa's BMW payment cancelled. Graham's country club dues cancelled. Vivian's Neiman Marcus card, which was fraudulently opened, reported and cancelled. You vindictive witch! Vivian lunged forward, but Marisol stepped between us. Careful, Mrs. Keller. Assault would add criminal charges to your existing legal problems. Owen's voice continued from the phone. Mrs. Whitfield, I'm also confirming that the freeze on all your credit has been enacted. The 7 fraudulent applications have been reported to all 3 credit bureaus and the Federal Trade Commission. Thank you. Owen? I switched to another app. This is interesting. The country club just charged my card $12,000 for tonight's event. A card I never authorized for this use. The country club manager, who'd been hovering nervously, stepped forward. Mrs. Keller said, "I'm disputing the charge now," I said, typing. "Fraud protection is wonderful these days. The charge will be reversed within 24 hours. "Then who's paying?" the manager demanded. Everyone looked at Vivian. We don't have," she stammered. "Then you have a problem," the manager said coldly. "Security. Please ensure no one leaves until we resolve payment." Marisol addressed the room. "For anyone who received promises of payment or investment from the Kellers based on Mrs. Whitfield's supposed wealth, please see me. You may be victims of fraud as well." 3 of Graham's business associates immediately approached her. Mark finally found his voice. "Mom, please, just stop. We'll figure this out privately." "Privately?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Like how you privately told everyone I was wealthy, privately gave out my social security number, privately promised to fund half of Austin with my endless money. It got out of hand. No, Mark, you set it in motion. You created this fiction because you were too insecure to tell the truth that your mother is a middle-class accountant who worked hard for everything she has." Lila was sobbing now, mascara creating abstract art on her designer dress. "The wedding, the vendors, we signed contracts. With whose money?" I asked. "Yours," Mark said. "Mark lied, and you chose to believe it because it was convenient. You never once asked me directly, never confirmed, just spent and spent and spent." The process server cleared his throat. "There's one more item." He pulled out a final document. "Notice of UCC1 filing for securing interest in personal property, specifically the 2 vehicles purchased with funds traced to the family launch fund loan." "Our cars," Mark's voice cracked. "The Audi Q7 and the Tesla Model S," Marisol confirmed. "Both purchased within days of receiving the loan, both now subject to security interest." Graham tried one last gambit. "This is extortion blackmail. We'll sue." "Please do." Marisol smiled. "Discovery will be fascinating. We have every text, email, and fraudulent document you've created." I picked up my purse, ready to leave. But first, one final blow. "Oh, Vivian. That investment opportunity you mentioned last week, the one where Graham's friend needed $300,000. He called me directly. Seems Graham told him I was worth $8 million and loved high-risk ventures." Graham's face went purple. "That was a private business discussion, which you based on a lie. Your friend is now reconsidering his entire relationship with you. Something about trust and honesty in business." Security guards were now blocking the exits, waiting for payment resolution. The remaining guests were documenting everything on their phones. By tomorrow, this would be all over Austin's social media. The country club manager had called the police. "Since this appears to be a fraud situation, we need law enforcement." "This is all your fault," Vivian screamed at me. "You could have just helped. You have more than enough." "I have exactly enough," I replied. "Enough for my retirement, enough for my future, enough self-respect to not be manipulated by grifters." Mark made one last attempt. "Mom, if you do this, we're done. I'll never speak to you again." I looked at my son, the boy who'd become a stranger, who'd traded integrity for the appearance of success. "Mark, we were done the moment you decided my real life wasn't good enough for your in-laws. The moment you chose to build your relationship on lies about my money rather than truth about who we are." The sound of sirens approached. The fairy lights still twinkled mockingly over a scene that had become a crime scene. Marisol touched my arm. "We should go," The police will want statements, but we can do that tomorrow at the station. As we walked toward the exit, now cleared by security for us alone, I heard Vivian's last desperate shriek, "You're destroying everything." "No," I said without turning around. "I'm just turning off the tap." The automatic doors closed behind us, cutting off the sounds of chaos, accusations, and the final collapse of the Keller-Whitfield alliance. In the parking lot, Marisol smiled grimly. "The lien documents will be filed Monday morning. The fraud charges are already in process." "And Mark?" "That's up to him now." I sat in my sensible Honda Accord, looking back at the country club where my son's future was imploding. Sometimes love means saying no. Sometimes it means exposing the lie, no matter how much it hurts. The endless money had finally ended, right there, in front of everyone who'd been told it existed. The police had arrived, their blue and red lights painting the country club's limestone facade in alternating colours. I stood beside Marisol in the parking lot, watching through the floor-to-ceiling windows as officers took statements from the Kellers. Vivian's gesticulations were dramatic enough to see from 50 yards away. "We should go back in," Marisol said. "One final thing to settle?" "There's more. The acceleration clause. They need to understand their options, formally, in front of witnesses." We re-entered through the main entrance. The grand ballroom had transformed into a crime scene, with officers documenting everything. The remaining guests huddled in small groups, their phones out, recording history. Detective Patricia Morales approached us. "Mrs. Whitfield, we need your statement about the fraud allegations." "My client will provide a full statement tomorrow," Marisol intervened. "But first, we need to present the resolution options to the involved parties." The detective nodded, gesturing to a cleared area near the abandoned head table. "Make it quick." Mark and Lila sat at the table, both looking shell-shocked. The Kellers stood behind them like generals who'd lost a war but refused to surrender. I placed a single document on the table. "You have two choices." "We're not signing anything more," Graham barked. "Then you'll default, and enforcement begins Monday." I kept my voice steady, professional. "Option 1. Sign this acknowledgement, admit the misrepresentation, agree to a structured repayment plan, publicly apologize for the fraud, never use my name for financial purposes again." "Publicly apologize." Vivian's voice cracked. "You want to humiliate us further. You humiliated yourselves. This is accountability." I turned to Mark. "You'll also need to return the cars purchased with the loan money or accept them as part of the debt with appropriate interest." "What's option 2? Lila asked quietly. Her bravado finally cracked. Marisol took over. "Full acceleration. The entire 120,000 due in 72 hours. When you can't pay, and we know you can't, we file liens on the house, the cars, and any other assets we can trace to the loan. We pursue the criminal fraud charges to the fullest extent. The FBI gets involved for interstate wire fraud, since some of the credit applications were processed across state lines." "FBI." Tessa dropped her phone. "Furthermore," Marisol continued, "we'll subpoena all your financial records, every text, every email. The discovery process will be comprehensive and public." I watched my son's face crumble. The reality was finally sinking in. This wasn't a family spat that would blow over. This was legal, permanent, documented. "I need a pen," Mark said quietly. "No." Graham grabbed his shoulder. "We don't admit to anything. We get our own lawyer." With what money? Dad. Lila turned on her father. You spent everything assuming Mark's mum would cover it. The country club debt, the house renovation, Tessa's tuition. You borrowed against our house based on a lie. The truth bomb exploded. Vivian turned to Graham, her face white. You borrowed against our house. It was supposed to be temporary, until Nora's money came through. Money that never existed. Vivian's composure finally shattered completely. You mortgaged our home for a fantasy. While they fought, Mark signed the acknowledgement. His signature was shaky, nothing like the confident scrawl I'd taught him in 3rd grade. Lila signed next, tears dropping onto the paper. The Kellers need to sign too, Marisol said. The fraud acknowledgement. This is admission of guilt, Graham protested. This is your best option, Detective Morales interjected. Trust me, federal charges are not what you want. One by one, they signed. Each signature felt like a door closing not just on their access to my phantom wealth, but on any relationship we might have salvaged. Owen's voice came through my phone again. I'd kept him on the line. Mrs. Whitfield, I'm documenting receipt of the signed agreements via the video feed you're providing. The notary is standing by. A woman appeared from the crowd the mobile notary Marisol had arranged. She'd been there the whole time, waiting. Her stamp came down on each signature with a sound like a gavel. Now, I said. The public acknowledgement. You can't be serious, Vivian whispered. Dead serious. I gestured to the crowd, their phones still recording. Tell them the truth. Mark stood slowly, like an old man. He faced the remaining guests, the business associates, the friends who'd believed his fiction. I lied, he said, voice barely audible. My mother isn't wealthy. She never promised to pay for anything. I created this story because I was ashamed of being ordinary, middle class. I wanted the Kellers to be impressed. Louder, I said. They all need to hear it. He raised his voice. I lied about my mother having endless money. She's a hard-working accountant who saved carefully to help with our down payment as a loan, not a gift. Everything the Kellers told you about her wealth was based on my lies. Lila stood next to him. I believed it because I wanted to. I never verified anything. I just spent. We committed fraud using her information. Graham had to be prodded by the detective, but finally spoke. We acted on false information. Mrs. Whitfield owes us nothing. Vivian just cried. Tessa, surprisingly, was the most honest. We were greedy. We saw a chance for easy money and took it. It was wrong. The country club manager stepped forward. So who's paying for tonight? We'll set up a payment plan, Graham said weakly. Unacceptable. Full payment now, or I'm pressing charges. Graham looked around desperately. None of his business associates would meet his eyes. His reputation, built over 30 years, had crumbled in 30 minutes. I'll need to liquidate some assets, he finally admitted. Mark turned to me one last time. Mum, I know I have no right to ask, but no. You didn't let me finish? You were going to ask me to pay for tonight, to save one last shred of their dignity. The answer is no. I was going to ask if you could ever forgive me. I looked at my son, really looked at him. Beneath the expensive suit Lila had picked out, beneath the pretense he'd worn like armor, I saw glimpses of the boy who'd once saved money to buy me a ceramic bird. Forgiveness isn't the issue, Mark. Trust is. And trust, once broken like this, takes years to rebuild, if ever. I understand. Do you understand that you didn't just lie about money? You lied about who I am. You were ashamed of me, of my ordinary, honest life. I wasn't ashamed. You were, and that's what hurts more than any fraud, that my son thought I wasn't enough as I am. The notary finished her work. All documents are sealed and witnessed. Marisol gathered the papers. The lien notices will be filed first thing Monday morning. The credit fraud reports are already in the system. The acceleration clock is ticking. Endless money, I said, looking directly at Vivian. You thought I had endless money, but what I actually have is endless disappointment in people who value wealth over integrity. I walked to the microphone one last time. The room fell silent. Let tonight be a lesson, I announced. When someone tells you another person has endless money and will pay for everything, ask yourself why. Why would anyone do that? And more importantly, why aren't you hearing it directly from the source? I looked at the crowd, some sympathetic, some shocked, all bearing witness. The endless money ends here. The family launch fund becomes due in full in 72 hours. The fraud has been reported. The consequences are in motion. I stepped away from the microphone, picked up my purse, and headed for the door. Behind me, I heard Mark say something, but I didn't turn around. Some bridges, once burned, light the way forward. Marisol walked beside me. You did the right thing. Did I? I just destroyed my son's future. No. You revealed the truth about a future built on lies. What he builds now, that'll be real. As we reached the parking lot, my phone buzzed. A text from Mark. The wedding is off. Lila's leaving. The Kellers are filing for bankruptcy. I hope you're satisfied. I typed back, I'm not satisfied. I'm free. Then I blocked his number. Sometimes love means letting go completely, even when it breaks your heart. The endless money was over. But more than that, the endless manipulation, the endless lies, the endless drain on my dignity. I drove away from the country club, leaving behind the wreckage of false promises and impossible expectations. In my rearview mirror, the police lights still flashed, marking the end of everything. But endings, I'd learned, could also be beginnings. Just not tonight. Tonight was for consequences. The country club parking lot stretched before me, bathed in sodium light that turned everything a sickly orange. Behind me, through the massive windows, I could see the chaos continuing police officers, crying guests. The Kellers huddled with Graham's business partners, who were probably calculating their own losses from believing his lies. I sat in my Honda Accord, key in the ignition, but not turning it. Not yet. My phone lit up with notifications. Messages from friends who'd been there, from colleagues who'd already seen the videos spreading online, from numbers I didn't recognize. I deleted them all without reading. Tomorrow would bring its own aftermath. Tonight, I just needed to seal this ending. Marisol knocked on my window. I rolled it down. The courier just confirmed delivery, she said, holding up her tablet. The acceleration notice has been formally served to their mortgage company and the title office. It's done. All of it? Every last document. The liens will post Monday morning at 8 a.m. sharp. Their mortgage company has been notified of the fraudulent representation of funds. The cars have been flagged with the DMV. Through the windshield, I watched Mark exit the building, walking alone. Lila was nowhere to be seen. He moved like a man in a dream or a nightmare. His expensive suit wrinkled, his shoulders bent. He didn't look around, didn't search for me, just walked to his Tesla, the Tesla my loan had purchased, and stood beside it, apparently realizing he might not own it much longer. "There's one more thing," Marisol said, pulling out a final document. "The criminal complaint. Once I file this, there's no going back. The DA will pursue charges." I took the paper, feeling its weight. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about prison time, federal charges, permanent records. "Mrs. Whitfield," Marisol prompted gently. A text came through from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I opened it. It was from Lila. "I never loved him. I loved what I thought you could give us. You did Mark a favor tonight." I deleted it and looked back at the criminal complaint. "File it," I said. Marisol nodded, took the signed document, and walked to her car. The courier would deliver it to the DA's office first thing Monday morning. Another ending, sealed and notarized. I finally started my car. As I pulled out of the parking space, my headlights swept across the valet stand where a hand-lettered sign read, "Keller Whitfield Reception." Someone had already crossed out Whitfield. The drive home was silent. No radio, no podcasts, just the hum of tires on asphalt. Every red light gave me time to think about what I'd just done. Every green light pushed me further from the wreckage. My house was dark when I arrived at 11:47 p.m. The same house where 6 weeks ago I'd thrown an engagement party in my backyard. The string lights were still up, though half the bulbs had burned out. I'd take them down tomorrow. Inside, everything was exactly as I'd left it. My coffee cup in the sink, my reading glasses on the counter. The mortgage papers for Mark's house still spread on my kitchen table. I gathered them up. All $120,000 worth of documented generosity, and fed them into my shredder. The machine whined as it digested the evidence of my final attempt at motherly support. My phone buzzed once more. Owen Price. "The acceleration timer is now active. 71 hours, 58 minutes remaining. All financial shields are in place. Your accounts are protected." I poured myself a glass of wine, the good stuff, a Malbec I'd been saving for a special occasion. If destroying your son's fraudulent future didn't qualify, what did standing at my kitchen window? I could see my reflection overlaid on the dark backyard. A 61-year-old woman in a simple black dress, holding a glass of wine, standing alone in her paid-off house. No endless money, no dynasty to fund, no family to support. Just me. The ceramic bird Mark had bought me all those years ago still sat on my windowsill. I picked it up, ran my fingers over its painted wings. That boy was gone, replaced by a man who'd traded truth for appearances, integrity for approval. "You can borrow my reputation for an evening," I said aloud to the empty kitchen, "but you can't mortgage my self-respect." I set the bird down and raised my glass to my reflection. 2 endings. The wine was perfect complex, honest, worth waiting for. My phone showed one final alert, Leon recorded, acceleration active. The endless money was officially over. The Keller-Whitfield alliance was dissolved. The fiction of my wealth had been exposed in front of 200 witnesses and was probably trending on social media by now. Tomorrow, there would be consequences to face, legal proceedings, social fallout, the complete severance of my relationship with my only child. But tonight, in my modest kitchen, with my good wine and my hard-earned solitude, I felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks. Peace, the kind that comes from truth, even when truth burns everything down. I turned off the lights and headed to bed, leaving my phone on the counter. Whatever messages came, whatever pleading or threats or desperate bargaining filled my inbox, they could wait. The endless money had ended, and so had the woman who would have paid any price to keep her son's love. That woman was broke now, emotionally bankrupt, familiarly dissolved. But the woman who remained, she was solvent. Every penny accounted for, every debt clear, every truth told. I climbed into my bed paid for, in my house paid for, in my life earned, not borrowed, not stolen, not built on someone else's endless anything. The last sound I heard before sleep was a text notification I didn't check, because some endings don't need epilogues. They just need to end. Interest due today, I whispered to the darkness. You pay it yourself. The sodium streetlight outside cast shadows through my blinds, sharp lines of light and dark. No grey areas, no ambiguity. Exactly how it should be. Exactly how it would remain. The end. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this tale of family, money, and hard truths resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What would you have done in Nora's position? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to share this story with someone who might need to hear it.